Beneath the surface, a city stands where no one walks anymore. The streets are still there. The stone steps are still there. Only now, fish drift through them instead of footsteps. Somewhere along Turkey's southern coast, in a corner barely marked on any map, there's a place almost nobody has heard of. It's called Kekova. Getting here isn't easy. There's no road in. The only way is by boat, cutting through open water. No crowds, no signs, no tour buses, just rock, sea, and 25 centuries of silence. This stretch of coast, tucked between Kaş and Demre, southwest of Antalya, is known as Central Lycia. Hardly anyone knows the name. And yet, this was once one of the most densely settled corners of the ancient world. No fertile farmland, no fresh water source. And still, dozens of cities rose here, one after another, almost within shouting distance of each other. Why? That answer is coming. Welcome to Rumicius. In the previous episode, we were in Tlos, a city whose excavation seems to never end, with roots running 9,000 years deep. This time, the journey moves to Lycia's harbour towns. They sit so close together, you can practically see them all from a single spot on the coast. The journey through ancient Lycia continues. If discoveries like this, ancient cities and their stories, interest you too, support this channel. Subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment for the next chapter in this series. Picture the 5th century BCE. Ships across the eastern Mediterranean are searching for shelter, running from sudden storms. This coastline might as well have been built for exactly that. Dozens of natural coves, each one sheltering ships from a different wind. And that's precisely why a civilization took root here. One built entirely on the sea, kept alive by trade. But here's the real mystery, where these cities actually are today. Because part of this world isn't on land anymore. Centuries of earthquakes have slowly dragged the coastline underwater. Streets people once walked now sit meters below the surface. Sail over them today, and through clear water you can still make out rows of walls, the corners of rooms, even staircases. That's why the world knows this place as the Sunken City. Kekova isn't one place. It's an island surrounded by a scattered network of smaller cities. Kekova Island itself, Simena just across from it, Tuberissos a little further inland, Aperlai to the west, Apollonia to the north. Close enough to see from one another, yet each with its own story to tell. This episode follows all of it. Simena's fortress carved straight into rock, Aperlai's forgotten harbour, ruins hidden beneath the sea, and the everyday lives of people who called this coastline home thousands of years ago. First stop, Simena. You either arrive by boat or you walk the rocky trail from the village of Uchas. Nothing quite prepares you for what's waiting. And then, suddenly, half buried in the shoreline, a sarcophagus rising straight out of the sea. It's the image most people picture when they think of Kekova, but it's only a fragment of a much older, much stranger story. Simena has been lived in continuously since the 5th century BCE Lycian lords, Roman governors, Byzantine monks, Ottoman fishermen, all of them on the same rocks, walking the same streets. Look closely at the walls between the houses and you'll see it. 2,500-year-old stonework, laid by hand. Above it, mortar and rubble from centuries later. History here doesn't hide. It's stacked right in front of you. At the heart of the city sits what might be the smallest ancient theatre in the world, room for barely 200 people. But here's the strange part. Nobody built it. It was carved. Every seat cut straight out of the bedrock, on the spot, without a single stone brought in from anywhere else. Try to imagine that kind of patience, working by hand, with nothing but the simplest tools. Climb to Simena's highest point, and the view will stop you in your tracks, as much from the climb as from what's in front of you. Kekova Island, the Bay of Uchas, the Mediterranean catching the light in the distance. The fortress walls up here have stood in continuous use since the 5th century BCE, all the way through the Middle Ages, nearly 2,000 years without a break. These stones were never left to fall. Someone kept rebuilding them, generation after generation. If you're watching this, you're probably chasing the same kind of places, the ones the crowds haven't found yet, but the ones that stay with you once you do. That's what this channel is built for, finding the places dismissed in a single line of a guidebook, when in reality they've got hours of story worth telling. From here, the path leads towards Simena's necropolis, and into something stranger and more moving than most people expect. How the Lycians thought about death itself. Walk into that necropolis, and it doesn't feel like a graveyard. It feels like a city in miniature. For the Lycians, that wasn't an accident. Death, in their belief, wasn't an ending. It was a move to a different kind of home. So the tombs were built like houses, sarcophagi topped with roof-shaped stone lids, as if someone was still living inside. Every one of them carries a family's story. Small hollows carved in front once held sacrificial offerings. Inscriptions in the Lycian language preserve names, sometimes even occupations, of people who lived here 2,500 years ago. Their names are still readable today. Ask yourself, will yours be 25 centuries from now? One corner of the necropolis sits shaded by ancient olive trees, some over 1,000 years old, a few pushing 1,500, almost certainly rooted in this same soil since antiquity. Olives were the lifeblood of this coast, fuel, cleaning, food, all in one. That bar of olive oil soap in your bathroom might trace its roots straight back to a place like this, a habit passed down for thousands of years without anyone realizing it. Now step back and look at how this region actually made its money, because there's a hard economic reason behind why cities like Simena were built with this much care, revenue. This coast sat inside a major trade network in antiquity. Olives, carob, thyme, sage, loaded onto ships from these natural harbours and sold across the Mediterranean. Over time, that turned a handful of small coastal towns into genuine centres of wealth. This wasn't just farming. It was maritime trade, running an entire monetary system. Cities here minted their own coins. That kind of independence meant something. A city striking its own currency was, in every practical sense, declaring its own economic autonomy. But that prosperity didn't hold. Earthquakes kept coming, trade routes shifted, and slowly the region slid into economic collapse. Harbours went quiet, houses emptied out, cities that once minted their own money faded into names history nearly forgot. Which is worth pausing on. Because walking among these stones, it's easy to forget. Real people lived here. Fishermen anchored their boats in these coves. Women sorted olives outside these houses. Children ran through these narrow streets. Even the beam holes cut into these walls are proof. A roof, a family, an ordinary life once stood exactly here. From Simena, the journey moves on to what might be the most peaceful corner of this entire coastline, a harbour town with no road in, reachable only by foot or by boat. Aperlai is waiting. There's no road to Aperlai. Sounds strange, but it's true. No car route in, no bus line, nothing. Just two ways in, an 8-kilometre trail from Uchas, following the Lycian way, or arriving by boat at a small pier on the water. One thing worth knowing if you're walking it, this is a proper hiking trail. Mostly flat, but it'll still wear you down. Bring real gear. In a world where almost nowhere is off the grid anymore, reaching a place using nothing but your own feet, or the sea, feels like a luxury you can't buy. 8 kilometers of rocky trail under an open sun. No engines, no traffic. Nothing but your own footsteps. And that's exactly why arriving at Aperlai hits the way it does. A kind of peace you won't find anywhere else. Completely alone, completely quiet. No crowds, no signs, no noise. Just rock, olive trees, and a still harbour waiting ahead of you. Aperlai sits on its own peninsula, about 5 kilometers west of Kekova Island. Nobody knows exactly when it was founded, but its name shows up on coins from the 5th century BCE, solid proof it's been here for thousands of years. It most likely started out as the harbour serving Apollonia, the city to the north. The first thing you'll notice here is a dock now sitting underwater. Earthquakes hit this coast again and again, major ones in 141, 240, and 530 CE, pulling the shoreline down more than 2 meters. Buildings that once stood on solid ground now sit beneath clear water, their outlines shifting gently below the surface. It's one of the strangest sights you'll ever see. Ground people once walked on, now home to fish. But Aperlai's real story runs deeper than the stones. This small, quiet harbour once produced one of the most valuable products in the ancient world, purple dye. Extracted from a species of sea snail called murex, it made a colour reserved exclusively for kings and nobles, royal purple. Even today, the colour carries that same association with luxury, and its roots trace straight back to this forgotten coastline. Just outside the city walls, near the water, the remains of that dye workshop are still there. The ground is littered with broken pottery and shattered shells, silent proof of thousands of creatures crushed and boiled here, one batch at a time. The stench must have been brutal, which is exactly why workshops like this always sat downwind, outside the city. Even in antiquity, people understood the logic of keeping the factory at a distance. This industry genuinely transformed Aperlai's economy. Purple dye was one of the most profitable investments of its time, a true luxury good, on par with jewelry or perfume today. It's why the city managed to keep minting its own coins, even during the economic crisis that crippled much of the Roman Empire in the 3rd century CE. Aperlai's trade wasn't just feeding a local economy, it was propping up an entire regional currency. Think of it as a small coastal town rising into a genuine financial hub, built on one of the era's most valuable luxury exports. Head toward the city centre, and narrow ancient streets open up, staircases still intact, still walkable. Homes carved straight into rockline either side, their upper walls long collapsed, but the rest still standing. Whoever lived here was almost certainly among the wealthiest in the city. Farmers and fishermen usually lived out beyond the walls. Walk through a city gate into the centre, and you're standing, quite literally, where someone stood thousands of years before you. Most of the sarcophagi here, like elsewhere along this coast, were carved from a single block of rock, shaped patiently right where they still sit. One of the most touching details in Aperlai is an old village house still standing inside the ruins, left behind by people who lived here until fairly recently. Proof that this city was never fully abandoned? Not really. No excavation has ever taken place at Aperlai, and that's part of what makes it so remarkable. No museum cases, nothing restored, just a city, left exactly as time and nature shaped it. Maybe that's why so few people who make it out here ever forget it. Whether you arrive after an 8-kilometer walk or by boat, this doesn't feel like sightseeing. It feels like discovery, the dust on your boots, the sweat on your neck, and that still harbour opening up in front of you. From Aperlai, the journey heads to its final stop, and maybe its strangest. 4 nautical miles away lies a city hidden entirely beneath the sea, Kekova Island. Approach the island, and at first it looks like any other stretch of coastline, rocky, green, quiet. But cut the engine, look down through the water, and everything changes. A few meters below the surface, an entire hidden city stretches out beneath you. Rows of walls, room corners, staircases. In places, even water channels still cut through the seabed. This is an experience you won't find almost anywhere else on Earth. History here doesn't live in a book or a glass case. It sits directly beneath the water. Known in antiquity as Dolikista, this settlement sank slowly, over centuries, through repeated earthquakes rather than one single catastrophe, like watching a city go under in slow motion. Even now, divers keep finding new structures under these waters, which means Kekova's story still isn't finished. On the island's northern slope, in a spot known as Tursane Bay, boat-building workshops, or perhaps homes, once stood. What's left above water still shows the marks of wooden roof beams, along with old cisterns and water channels. There's also a small, remarkably well-preserved church from the Byzantine era, likely connected to the cult of Saint Nicholas, the man from nearby Myra, who would go on to inspire the legend of Santa Claus. On the southeastern side of the island, near the shore, sits one of the most practical relics of ancient daily life: fish processing facilities. Fish here were salted and fermented into a sauce called garum. In a world with no refrigeration, this was the only way to keep food from spoiling. The scale of these facilities suggests this wasn't just for local kitchens. This was export production, meaning this small island was once a genuine trading hub in its own right. Step back and look at Kekova as a whole, and the picture is genuinely surprising. No fertile land, no fresh water, and still dozens of cities packed along this coast, one after another. The only real explanation is what the sea itself provided: safe harbours and the wealth that came from trading through them. Thousands of years ago, people here were making the exact same bet an investor makes today, spotting the opportunity hidden in the landscape, building that much prosperity out of so little natural resource. Maybe there's a lesson in that, even now. So why does this place still matter, all these centuries later? Because Kekova is one of the rare places where humans and nature actually found balance. No roads, no concrete, no hotel chains, just a protected coastline holding its history quietly intact. Today, the region carries official protected status, meant to keep it exactly as it is for the future. A place staying this untouched for this long is something humanity almost never manages. What sets Kekova apart from so many other ancient sites is simple. Nothing here has been restored or tidied up or arranged for visitors. The ruins sit exactly as time and nature left them, and that gives you something rare, the feeling of real discovery, not a museum tour. As the sun goes down and your boat drifts across calm water, take one last look at the coast behind you. Thousands of years ago, people here sailed these same waters, sheltered from storms in these same coves, carved their homes into these same rocks. What's left now is simple: stone, a handful of coins, a few inscriptions. But what remains carries a silence so heavy, it almost feels like it's speaking. Kekova isn't a place to rush through. It's built for slowing down, for stepping into a story that's thousands of years old. Maybe that's why almost nobody who comes here once ever forgets it. No skyscraper, no resort, no paved road has ever touched this view. Just rock, olive trees, and centuries of silence. There's far more out here than what made it into this episode. Cities still unexcavated, trails still unmapped, coves nobody's found yet. That's what this channel exists to do. Keep finding places like this before the crowds do. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll be there first. Take one last look at Kekova's water. Somewhere down there, just beneath the waves, a city is still standing. Silent, patient, waiting.